This is an SM Media production.
Hi folks, and welcome to episode 10 of SM Media's Road to Cheltenham 2023. I'm Scott McPike. It's an absolute pleasure to be your host as always, and it's always a pleasure to be joined by from the Scottish Daily Mail, Calum McClurkin. Calum, we're 10 episodes in, it's getting to the exciting stage now, we're nearly there.
Yeah, it's kind of over the horizon now, but there's a lot of kind of weather issues ahead this weekend, so it's maybe kind of slowly gearing up to the Dublin Racing Festival and then into kind of Cheltenham territory at the moment. I just think the kind of plans are quite up in the air for a lot of yards at the moment.
Yeah, I think as well, obviously, we will do a sort of weekend preview, although it's very doubtful the racing is going to take place. We will do a wee preview of the weekend just to, in the event that it could take place. But we do have some questions from our viewers. As always, if you want to get a question in, please send it below in the comments or via social media. First question, with Impaire Et Passe impressing in the Moscow Flyer, will he run against Facile Vega in the Supreme, or will Willie Mullins decide to split them and maybe run one in the Ballymore? I know you've got a bit of an issue with this kind of thing. Like, obviously, Impaire Et Passe, it was impressive, jumped really well. You retweeted something that I totally agreed with. If this was any other trainer, he would be going to the Supreme.
Without question. After that, show gears like that over a slowly run 2 miles, win a Moscow Flyer, where the traditional history is that he will definitely run in a Supreme after winning a Grade 2 of that nature around that trip. It was a speed test, and he completely passed it. His big asset was his jumping at pace, which was flawless. And even his cover for Facile Vega, he covers the right base, in my opinion, about him: speed, slick jumping. I think that would cover every single base that you need in a Supreme for Willie Mullins. So he's more than adequate backup to Facile Vega if you look at that. But I think sometimes you just need to take some horses out of the equation and see which horse should run over its best trip. I think this is an absolute bang out 2 mile at the moment. I think it's kind of ridiculous that he might run the Ballymore, and it looks likely that he probably will if you follow the exchanges.
If he runs in the Ballymore, would you back him?
No, but I mean, you could at the end of the day, but no, I wouldn't, because of the price at the moment. But no, I just think for the race nature, and for a curtain raiser as well of a big Cheltenham Festival, Facile Vega versus Marine Nationale, that's it. If this horse doesn't run, that is it. It'd be a dreadful spectacle. I mean, imagine Blue Lord not running against Appreciate in the Supreme.
Yeah.
What would that mean like? It would have been a total farce. And I think we're descending into kind of farcical territory here with these, Willie Mullins odds-on shots getting freebies and can run at whatever trip they like. It's supposed to be a competitive festival of Grade 1 horses, the best against the best. Not the best against the second rate, and the best against nobody, or the third rate in this instance, if this is happening in the Supreme. I'd be quite angry if he actually went Ballymore just because he won a maiden over 2 mile free. Well, it was a lesser race than the Moscow Flyer. Okay, it might have been weak, but he showed every single possible attribute that you want in a 2 mile novice hurdler. A top class one of that. I think going into the middle distances, I think would be. I think it'd be a strange move in my opinion.
What's the chances of Facile Vega going Ballymore? I would say close to zero.
Yeah, I mean, he's been campaigning like Appreciate it was like 2 mile till he gets beat. I think there's a bit more credence in winning a Supreme than a Ballymore as well. And Willie Mullins likes his kind of stairs. I think this is the kind of only tentative argument you can have for Impaire Et Passe going Ballymore. He likes staying 2 milers, and he likes kind of speedy 2.5 milers. But the Ballymore's still 2 mile 5 furlongs and an uphill finish. It can still be a grind as well. But I mean, Sir Gerhard went 2.5 mile route after winning the Dublin Racing Festival. So the fact is, it's got so many options with so much versatility that you can kind of do what he really wants. But all the talk coming into it was if he wins, if Impaire Et Passe wins impressively, people are chipping away at 10-12 for the Supreme and they'll be sitting there delighted. It's no longer the case now when everyone at the end of the race thinks he might be going Ballymore.
And Mullins does have a case though in the past of, like, with Sir Gerhard being a good example. He does, when he's Ballymore, he's kind of main Ballymore horse, he does tend to, the first time up and trip is the Ballymore. Like York Hill being an example as well. I think he ran York Hill in the Tolworth. And obviously he won. Like, you've got Sir Gerhard last year. He's done it in the past. Like, I think as well, the big thing with Willie Mullins is he doesn't really. Although he's got probably 3 of the 4 in the top of the betting for the Ballymore. I don't think between us. I don't know if Willie Mullins knows more about horses than I'll ever know. But does he think he's got an out and out Ballymore horse in there? In that, this Champ Kylie looks more of a stayer. Gaelic Warrior, again, you would have to question if he's Cheltenham level. And Impaire Et Passe is obviously going up trip. Does he have a Ballymore candidate? Like maybe last year we knew Sir Gerhard was more than capable of winning that. It was probably the easier race last year for him to go. Do you know what I mean? So
3 or 4 decent Ballymore candidates. It's an open race. You don't need a world beater to win that. Grangeclear West could come back. I think Champ Kylie's definitely 2.5 miler. You win a Grade 1 at that. Law's an ace. With hurdles taken out, probably do enough. Gaelic Warrior, yeah, there's a big doubt about him going right-handed, but he's still classy enough. There's Indiana Dream who can come up with 2 miles. I mean, look at the entries it's got in that 2 mile 6 races in Dublin Racing Festival. Any one of them could probably hold their own in a Ballymore quite comfortably. I like Dart Raven, for instance, at a price. You can see him running well in behind. There's so many options that intermediate trip. You've got a bang out 2 miler there. You've got the Moscow Flyer, which he runs top class 2 mile novice hurdlers in, and an absolute history of it. And we've got to deal with this nonsense that he might not go to the Supreme because he ran in a complete maiden hurdle, which anyone could have won, really, at the end of the day. They're all getting freebies up front. It's comfortable. We learned a lot more about his assets, which were speed 2 miles, slowly run, quick at the line, slick hurdling. He's perfect cover for Facile Vega at worst, and he's a credible rival for him at best. The whole issue I've got is if he's not there, you've got a 2-horse race.
Yeah.
In essence, Timuris maybe, but Timuris has got the assets that Facile Vega has in terms of he'll be best effect in that staying soft ground contest. Who's going to win that? Facile Vega will win that. So he's out of the equation. Nicky Henderson's got nothing. Irish Point might go there, but I think he's got a ceiling. It's turning out to be a pretty farcical opener. Could be a 4-runner race, and Facile Vega could go off 1-4.
Yeah.
If this chap doesn't turn up, then Marine National's probably like your 41 second favourite, and you're hoping that Irish Point and Timuris go, and maybe something can come from Haydock, and that's it. That is it. I think if Impaire Et Passe doesn't go here, I think this race will lose a fair deal of its lustre, regardless of his opinion on his chance. But my opinion is that he should definitely go for the Supreme.
I think Supreme as well. I can see the Ballymore angle, but I think obviously just as you say, we're all about competition. You don't want Facile Vega to, as you say, to go 1-4 and the opener to be a farce. Next question: what is your ultimate cliff horse that you always back but never wins? I've got 2 from the past. One that I fell out with really badly. My first one, Yanworth. Backed Yanworth for the Ballymore. Thought he was going to win it comfortably. I thought he was given a poor ride from Barry Geraghty that day. York Hill got up and he was ridden out far too wide and obviously lost it. Would have won it if he just stayed in the middle and kind of tracked York Hill. And then he went to the champion hurdle the year after and I thought it was the banker. I really thought it was a very, very poor champion hurdle. If you remember, I think Petit Mouchoir was second favourite and he got given another bad ride. And Bouverdaire won that race. It was the same colours. That was a horse that I fell out with after that because I said I'm never backing him again, and he would turn up here and there and win races, but the 2 races I just couldn't back him again. The other one was a grey of the Ritchie colours by the name of Animix. I'm still convinced this horse will win something. I don't know what. I'm just anytime he's there, I just back him because he's capable of winning something. But they're my 2.
Yeah, Animix I think might go Hunters Chasing or something like that. Yeah, possibly. So many. I got a bad habit of jumping off the cliff just before they win. That staying on Damned Company after the Coral Cup was quite a big mistake. Done nothing since, and I'm quite bad for that. Get out of loyalty, like sticking with these horses. So that's probably the cliff horse angle I would take. Claiming Taken Forgan was another one that I simply adored as a horse. Actually followed it all the way around the season. Went to Musselburgh to specifically watch that horse when it got beaten in the Supreme Trial, when I knew it was unsuitable for it, but I still quite liked him. I still backed him for the Supreme, and I did get fifth each way at 20-1. But and still backed him for like novice chases, and then backed him again when he came out of like a massive 2-year injury break. So he's probably the only one that I've kind of had a genuine soft spot for, that I've kind of continued to back for some reason. But apart from that, I've got a bad habit of jumping off the cliff before it actually works out, and maybe sticking too long afterwards. But for certain horses, probably Claiming Taken Forgan is probably the main one.
Another one as well that I backed on Saturday was Angel's Breath.
Well, the money did come from
the money came after the slightest struggle. Yeah, there was we'll touch on that later on in the recap. Next question: what would be the biggest storyline of the Cheltenham Festival this year?
There's a few different angles. Probably the British-Irish dominance will be a factor again. The Willie Mullins factor. Look at how much is he going to dominate? He's got to kind of move different chess pieces around and stuff, and see what he can maximise to, and understand that even in the Impaire Et Passe debate, which I think is sometimes to the sport's detriment in the way that it's kind of shuffled that way. But he is a trainer, and he's going to try and get as many winners as possible, in the festival. That's what he's doing job, and that's why he's got so many owners that covet his services. So yeah, definitely him is definitely a story. There's always interest around Rachel Blackmore and Henry de Bromhead, particularly after his emotional year with the tragic passing of his son. The Mayor's Novices being named after Jack. So yeah, that's obviously going to be interesting. And Davy Russell's going to be a big story if he makes the Jack Kennedy situation. I'd expect Gornellic to have a much better festival than did last year. Quite a few of them ran out rather than in. It's interesting to note there's a bit of a form dip now, rather than the whole kind of year. The whole year he was kind of solid, and then the dip happened around springtime, which is he's won for 38 in the past fortnight. So the yard might be getting the bad spell out of the way now, which is kind of a decent spot to be. So yeah, I think they're interesting. There's plenty of angles, the mainstream angles of like welfare and stuff like that, and the conditions and crowd. Field sizes are a big blight in the sport. It's notable that the entries have gone down quite significantly. If you don't have the horse population for the whole calendar, and you don't even have it for certain races in the Cheltenham Festival, then I think there might be pretty big concerns, in the aftermath of that, looking at it, if a lot of these races do kind of fall apart and there's no maximum fields in some of the handicaps, for instance.
I think the one storyline I've come down on is, could we witness the greatest champion hurdle winner of all time?
Well, we could do. He's got maybe a long way to go there, but if Honeysuckle and Stateman run really well in the Irish Champion, and Honeysuckle wins, Vauban goes there as well. He will have three credible rivals. Not without question, the Epatont runs here as well, so you'd have another former champion hurdle winner there. So if the race holds up and has the desired depth, then I think that conversation could definitely be had. If it doesn't, and it falls apart a little bit, then that might be open to a little bit of doubt. But yeah, Constitution Hill will definitely be the most talked about horse there. Probably Galloping Deschamps as well in that regard. Cup, if he puts in like a wonderful display there. So yeah, there's certainly a few kind of horses that you can think that are generational talents this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was our questions. We'll move into the recap. We will start on Friday at Huntingdon. A couple of horses to mention. The first one is a horse that I've maybe turning into a cliff horse. I think a horse I'm going to back a lot. Perseus Way kept on well, won won relatively well in a decent race. 14s for the Boodles. For the Moors, probably are not wanting good to soft, but you would suggest if he's going to compete in a Boodles, it might need to be soft ground, because I think he could find one or two. I think just like the race at Chepstow, I think he could find maybe one or two just too good for him.
Yeah, it's not quite that ground dependent. It is versatile, but he's probably seen to slightly better effect in softer ground. He has a mark of 125. He didn't need to improve to win that from his Chepstow effort. Gives a form boosted comfort zone. The Moors said that he kind of ran them maybe a bit too far back at Chepstow. Given this, so he probably race a bit handier in the handicap. The Boodles definitely seems an obvious race for him.
Mm-hmm.
It's a solid type. His mark's definitely not insurmountable, and he's got place graded form in the book, so he wouldn't be completely without an each way chance. But the bottom weight of a Boodles has been 129 the last couple of years, so he might want to be nudged up a little bit more just to be absolutely guaranteed safe to be in.
Yeah, I think so as well. A nice mare won the Mares Maiden Hurdle in maybe I think it was the second race, was Katira for the Skeltons. 16th for the Mares Novice Hurdle. Could be a nice prospect for the future. Could maybe even be an each way player if she decides to go to Cheltenham.
Yeah, we need to turn up bottomless for her though, because she's improved for going up to 2.5 miles, and you think that's kind of her trip. And excess stamina is no bad thing in the Mares Novices Hurdle, but I think to that extent she might be a little bit outpaced by a few potentially classier types in there. It's a magical Zoe backer. I'd be happy to kind of see her covered. But yeah, no, you can see Dan Skelton kind of is very good with these kind of mares, biding a time with her and kind of maybe getting her up to handicap status, and then there's plenty of nice listed races across the season that you can get some black type in.
Yeah, good weekend so far for the kind of Skeltons. Gala de Leto won the Grade 2 at Warwick on Saturday, 14-1 for the Mares Chase, 13 length winner. I would say with this horse, I know she fell at Kempton, at Christmas. She jumped quite a bit to her right at some points. I think they could maybe just bypass Cheltenham.
I think that's probably likely. The Reynoldstown looks an obvious port of call.
Possibly, yeah.
Like that initially. I would probably go there with her. I think soft ground's probably quite important to her as well. She was well backed at that Kempton obviously Star Chase. She kind of went favourite really. Quite go right. Quite a lot of Dan Skelton's horses at that time are going in and out. They bounce back to form on the weekend, which typically when I spot and generally oppose, they start sparkling back into form. Yes, she's definitely talented in the future down the line. If it was really soft in a Mares Chase, she could turn up there and take her chance, but I think it's probably a year too soon for her in that regard. And I think she's more of a 3 miler on a flat track, right-handed as you say, probably suits. So I'll go to the Reynoldstown with her. Novice status and go again next season.
Yeah, I think you could be right there. Grey Dawning was a nice winner of the Leamington Novices Hurdle, the Grade 2. 12-1 kind of for the Albert Bartlett. There is about 20s for the Ballymore as well. I think this horse will be better going up in trips. Stayed on well again, another good ride. All three were in with a chance, but I think what won Grey Dawning the race was he was capable of staying on.
Yeah, Jerry's Destiny flattened the last, which kind of did it for her. And he was delivered a little bit later in between them, Grey Dawning, which kind of helped. He handled the ground, doesn't need it that soft. He won Boxing Day in the last race at Kempton, and he was quite highly fancied, even though the Yard were running a little bit out of form. So that suggests that he's that there is kind of graded potential there in the first instance. He was a lot straighter for pressure at Warwick. Can he take the next step to Grade 1 Albert Bartlett? I'm not so sure. I think they might wait for entry with him later down the line.
The last Sefton.
Yeah, a Sefton would probably be his race, I think. Flatter track, I think, is just a bit more conventional in that regard. I also think Albert Bartlett's a really deep division with the Irish Challenge as well. I think they might sensibly swerve it.
Yeah, I think you could as well. Kempton, couple of horses to mention. Pic Dory was the winner of the Silviniaco Conti Chase. 12s for the Ryanair. I would be very surprised if Pic Dory would go to the Ryanair. I think the only way he would go is maybe if Allaho didn't turn up and it turned into a really open race. It was a good performance, though. Now again, we both had worries about the ground, and I think he handled it pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, all these horses had holes going into them in different ways. At the prices, didn't quite fancy him in that ground, but he's just flat track below them into submission again, and that's what he does. And you could do that in a Cheltenham Ryanair, but I think he's better right-handed, flat track. Yeah, that just suits him. The kind of 2.5 mile intermediate trip. The Milne Aintree, I think, would probably suit. You can get away on left-handed. The Ascot Chase is a good race for him, I think. The 2 mile 5, and he'd improve for better ground, but he's definitely maturing and he's jumping better and he's settling a bit better. He might get 3 miles one day in a King George later down the line in the season. The way he's kind of going, but yeah, speed and burning him off from the front. So it's a good combination at Kempton, even on that desperate ground, and it was too much for some kind of fragile types in behind.
Yeah, I think he did what he was entitled to do. A big winner for you in the Lanzarote. West Balboa landed for the Skeltons. Yeah, and Skelton's record in these handicaps this year have been remarkable. Like, see these big kind of handicaps, they're doing really well in them. I found about 12-1 for the Coral Cup. If he went to Cheltenham, you would imagine that would maybe be the race he would go for.
Yeah, it's a mare. So yeah, but she will go to Coral Cup, I would imagine, from there. I just think they'd stick to handicap company with her, but she tanked strongly into it in very attritional ground, though. Only 4 finishers, so it's quite something. They went
I did see that, yeah.
Travelled very strongly, just about get up in the line. Missed the last 2 because he was there too soon. Kind of fiddled their way around it. Red Risk ran a cracker as well. He wouldn't be totally dismissed off the same pilot on a Martin Pipe off a big weight. He likes that kind of challenge. The third up for Pro, who I liked as well, he ran really well from the front as suspected. And that was probably a good effort. Getting Reese not being totally Reese fit for the season, for instance, so probably did well to actually see that out. In Green Glory, everything kind of went wrong for the Charles Burns gamble in that regard. There was a fall early on that he was hampered with, and I think that's eminently forgivable. I think there's a slightly lesser handicap, but there is definitely a race in that, even over here. So, yeah, all 4 that finished deserve a lot of credit. As for West Balboa, yeah, the Coral Cup, I think, is the only logical race at the festival for her. But there's plenty of 2.5 mile handicaps down the line that she can get this season. And again, another Dan Skelton mare that will probably be looking into like listed Grade 3 class by the time next year, because I think there's a lot of progress in her.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll move into Ireland. We've got a few to mention over the past few days. We'll start on Saturday. Blood Destiny was an impressive winner of the juvenile hurdle there. 18 lengths, untidy, I would say, at some hurdles. As a Lossiemouth backer, though, I'm not overly concerned. I think Lossiemouth, would he be able to give Lossiemouth £7 and jump that way in a Triumph hurdle?
We know he jumps better than that because his jumping in debut was perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I think he was a bit bored and then he got idle in front and then pulled away again.
I think it's safe to say the field in behind were maybe looking towards a Boodles.
I don't think the field in behind are that good, to be honest. Never mind Boodles, Mark. The way Jazzy Matty came off the bridle would be concerning. I know Common Practice has got a mark of 1:28. I wouldn't be interested in him. I think he's far too slow. Well, 2 miles at the moment. As for the winner, yeah, he's a bit untidy and fluent, but it was just far too easy for him. I wouldn't rather pick too many holes on him. And the only angle I can see Lossiemouth getting beaten is maybe she has ran in 2 very slowly run races.
Mm-hmm.
He has an obvious turn of foot. Blood Destiny might ask a question in the style in the front. He does look to hit the line hard, and he looks capable of kind of. But you can see Lossiemouth taking half a length here and there in the jumping department. So yeah, I would definitely not swap Lossiemouth for Blood Destiny, not even at the prices. But it's increasingly looking like those 2 in comfort zone are really the only 3 to kind of genuinely worry about at the moment. Right, or maybe Jupiter the Gate, but yeah, that's kind of your lot at the moment. So I'd be quite happy still if it was a Lossiemouth backer. But Blood Destiny's form is being slowly franked, and I think you'll learn more from his first day out rather than his second day out. So I wouldn't be too concerned about the jumping. You could definitely brush up on that, and think it'd be better seen to better effect in a better race. He's still in that race in the Dublin Racing Festival. I think that race is going to be absolutely essential to how the triumph pans out.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll move into Flamebearer, who's about 12-1 now for the Arkle. Looked a lot better down in trip, jumped a lot better as well. I don't think they will go to Cheltenham with this horse. I think they'll maybe, like they did with maybe Gentleman to Me last year, maybe they'll save him for a age or a Punches Down or something like that.
That seems to be the general kind of consensus. I can see why. I think if Dice Up Dynamo makes a grade and grade company, then I just think those two might take each other on far too soon. John Bond tracks both and scoots up and wins, something like that. Yeah, Willie Mullins has got some splitting to do, novice hurdlers, but it's not as complex as this.
No.
How to beat John Bond? How do you run 2 miles? He's got staying 2 miles. He's got 2.5 miles. There's so many options there.
He maybe isn't limited. Maybe isn't big with the 3 miles. Obviously, Classic Getaway didn't get an entry. I think now Guy O'Donnell's a certainty to go to 3 mile.
Could well be. He might nudge James DeBelly up to 3 miles. He's got these options, and I think the Dublin Racing Festival is going to be pretty key in determining which way they're going to go. He's got 5 potential Arkle contenders, really. You'd expect at least, definitely one of them will go. Turner's probably 2. Flamebearer might be the one that's left at home by kind of default. Not really fault of his own. He made it obvious that the first day just didn't stay that kind of longer trip in that bag. He jumped perfectly well till a big mistake at the last. That might put the frighteners on some people that he should be maybe held back for and keep one fresh for entry, which is a big prize in itself. Particularly if Willie Mullins gets himself in a position where he can win the Trainers' Championship.
Yeah.
He might keep a few back for entry, so that's kind of worth bearing in mind. Gaelic Warriors entry, for instance, in the Betfair Hurdle, which is a very rich prize to win, money-wise. He might have a little bit of an eye on that. So yeah, there's plenty of interest, and he could be a factor, but you'd definitely have that in the back of your mind that he might be saved for something else.
Yeah, Westport Cove won the bumper race at Fairyhouse on Saturday. I think it's safe to say this horse is maybe a bit keen.
Yeah, at least Patrick Mullins just allowed the horse to bowl on for about the first time this season, rather than try and restrain it and get it in a beat, so we can actually see what he's like. This isn't a traditional bumper that translates particularly well to the Cheltenham Festival. So even though he's won, even though he's probably a reasonable price in a open bumper,
very open bumper,
I wouldn't be too bothered by him, to be honest. He could probably get better, but Patrick Mullins is kind of riding these horses with an eye to the future, trying to get them to settle, learning to settle. And even though they win the day, I think the development further down the line will be a lot better for it. The fact that maybe giving up the ghost a little bit with that horse on the day might be, in the long run, a bit more negative than it is viewed short term positive. But interested to see where he goes next. He's entitled to take his chance up in grade, for instance. You can see him burning along, maybe in a champion bumper and setting up for something else.
Yeah, I think it could be maybe be one for the future.
I think it could be a pacemaker, to be honest.
It could be something like that, maybe 4th or 5th string. But we've not really touched much in the bumper. There's nothing like Queen's Gamble's entered tomorrow. You've obviously got the Chapeau de Soleil. There's nothing standing out to you at this point. It's a wide open race.
No, and that's why you need to go in total potential. And what's seen, Chapeau de Soleil was almost unsteerable, almost won, and the horse that beat him was second favourite in behind him.
You would imagine Dublin Racing Festival for him.
Yeah, both go there. Again, it's a race that's going to determine pretty much every single angle into Cheltenham, isn't it? So I think that's why a lot of light markets are pretty hesitant and inactive at the moment, because I think there's a sense that we're just kind of waiting for those couple of days at Leopardstown and then really seeing what we've got to deal with here, because it is so lopsided in that regard, and we haven't really seen much to form a concrete opinion about things, to take the kind of restricted prices that are kind of an offer, to be honest.
Yeah, and we did have King of Kingsfield sitting at 4-1. I think now best price 50s.
Yeah, the head carriage at Abracadabra would have been proud of.
Yep.
Yeah, again, I do kind of take it to heart because I didn't really like the way that horse even.
I don't really think Gigginstown liked the bumper.
Yeah, and I did kind of have that suspect kind of that he wouldn't really go through with it when required yet. You know, he might develop into something, but I don't think he's kind of a bumper kind of horse yet. But again, Abacadabra still ran there, and he turned out a pretty decent career for himself. So yeah, anything that runs in a race like a champion bumper nature, you know, it can't be totally dismissed down the line.
Yeah, I think the form of the last 3 or 4 have worked out pretty good, really good actually.
Yeah, some people are saying this one's maybe a bit questionable this year, but it's an elite bumper race, and it normally churns out quite a few very decent types. And I don't, even though this year's kind of up there, I don't think this will be different. They might be more slow burners, but I think it will still churn up its fair chunk.
Yeah, we'll move on to Sunday in Punchestown. We'll start with Impaire Et Passe. I found 4-1 for the. You've got kind of 4-1 5s for the Ballymore, 10 Supreme. Jump well, a 9th Moscow Flyer for Willie Mullins though. Like when you look at the winners of the Moscow Flyer, they all tend to be Supreme later on, which I think could be a
yeah. It's a Supreme horse. People that want this at the Ballymore obviously have been back in Facile Vega and the Supreme for months. And months.
Do you think that's it though? That's why like this horse is being touted for a Ballymore just because there's an odds-on potential. Willie Mullins is saying this could be one of the best he's had. Do you think that is playing into why this horse is going up in trip?
Definitely a factor. It can be the only factor in my mind. They think that this horse is pretty good, and they think that he might be a threat over Facile Vega over 2 miles.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of supplementing him as good backup, they don't. There doesn't seem to be a great appeal of him running there. I find the whole situation very strange indeed. I think it's pretty odd. I think this horse should be 90-95% guaranteed nailed on to be running the Supreme, and it seems 70-30 that he's going to run a Ballymore this
Can you make the case that he's been more impressive jumping wise in Facile Vega after 2 runs?
Over 2 mile in the Moscow Flyer like that, yeah. He has. Slicker in that regard. I'm not saying he's a better horse at Facile Vega. Probably is a better engine, it's better back class.
I think the big thing with Facile Vega as well is how winning that bumper in that ground last year has just made him. I think a lot of people think this horse is a real deal, and he looks like it. But as you say, he's 10-11 in a very, very poor looking Supreme, where you probably get Marie National, who's done nothing wrong, is probably the best of the rest. But looking behind, as you say, there could be 5 or 6 runners.
Could be less than that.
Yeah.
Particularly if Haydock doesn't churn up anything decent, then there will be only about 5 or 6 for sure. I just find that the whole situation I just find is pretty difficult. I mean, maybe Cheltenham's so far out, and it's the only thing that a lot of racing people just got to talk about. We've got to create this conversation around the Supreme because it's the opening race of the festival. I mean, if Impaire Et Passe doesn't run in the Supreme, then I think it'll be a much lesser race for it in terms of competitiveness and the spectacle.
I'm just
at the moment, and
yeah.
I believe that he's got everything you'd want a Moscow Flyer winner he had.
Yeah,
and they all run the Supreme.
Mm-hmm.
Is that why is that different this year? Because Facile Vega's in it. You know, if that is setting the precedent of what's going on down the line, then you make the festival 2 days, 3 days. I mean, and cut off kind of a quarter of these races if that's the case. Because I mean, there is understandable dodging. I don't think that's one of them.
No, I think you're right. I do think this horse would just. I think that this horse would probably be favourite for the Supreme if Facile Vega wasn't there.
Well, I mean, as I said in the build-up to this race, I mean, people are nicking 12s, 10s, in anticipation it's going to win a bona fide Supreme trial that Willie Mullins tries and tested all the time, that sends horses to the Supreme all the time, regardless of who else is in it. You know, it's a complete nailed-on banker for Ante-post punters, and they're chipping away at it, and then you see everything that you want to see in a 2 mile novice. You're thinking, oh, well, this could actually, instead of being chipping away to 6 or 7s, this should probably be close at Marine Nationale's prices at 72-4 to 1. And then at the end of the race, you think they go, oh, we might run him the Ballon. I mean, if you were on him there and nicking prices like that, I think your jaw would be in the floor. I think you'd be in total disbelief of saying it's. I think it's even worse than the Galopin Deschamps situation last year. I mean, people in Galopin Deschamps from the start of the season could not possibly comprehend this horse staying 2.5 miles.
Yeah.
Until the Dublin Racing Festival, and then it's 2 mile 5 furlongs, and he's got pace, and further down the line it might help his career, stuff like that. It can work out in the long run, but from the Ante-post angle, it made little sense at the time. Even though there was a kind of understanding about it, maybe there was pocket in my half there because you had Galopin Deschamps there, and I've got no Ante-post bet in the Supreme at all. I've got one trivial bet at a price in the Ballymore.
Mine's worked out well.
I've got not much interest in the novice hurdles at the moment. I'm astonished that this horse might not run in the Supreme.
Yeah, I think that's
my view.
Yeah, I can see him maybe being the angle of next year, maybe being a turnless horse, because he does look as if he could go up. He does look as if he's not short of maybe going up and trip, but I think he do it.
He's definitely capable of doing it.
Yeah.
Not that it should happen in
Yeah,
a festival nature like that.
As you say, I just think that, I think as well, I mean, we're touching the horse in a minute, but he's maybe got 2 or 3 Ballymore horses. Like, why he's not going to run 3 Ballymore horses in the same race? I don't think anyway, but I think he's better. I think he looks like a 2 miler right now, and I think he's he's not
keeping so many options that he has, as many of them open as possible.
And it's not just that as well, right? He's probably, well, obviously Townend. If they went Supreme, Townend will ride Facile Vega. Darryl Jacob was probably going to sit in a nice chance here.
Yeah, we've had it be below and appreciate it.
Yeah.
And owners can clash in the race as well as Stephen Forlonge and Shishkin. It's not alien for Willie Mullins to just have one run on the Supreme. It's actually rare. There's too many to split. You're going to get multiple Willie Mullins horses running in the same race. It's not bizarre. It's not as if you're going to be searching for jockeys either to ride in the Supreme.
No, absolutely not.
It's a strange situation, to be honest. I think it's maybe that he's got too much luxury and depth in these kind of departments that he can kind of toss him up anywhere can go, really. I think it's a bit. He's got so many options, so many armies. He's inevitably going to split them, and you can understand why. There's some dodging going on there, but I think that one's a bit hard leap to make.
Yeah, we'll move into Impervious, who was really impressive in the Grade 2 chase there. 7-4 now for the Mare's Chase, roughly kind of sharing favouritism with Allegory Devassi, who might be out on Sunday, I believe. Nice performance again, just this horse just keeps improving. Again, Journey with Me, I think you can take a decent thing away from that. I thought he ran a great race. Better suited to 2.5 miles, I think. I think keeping him at that distance will do him no harm. But the winner was very impressive, wasn't she?
Yes, I thought the trip in that ground was a bit of a doubt. Got it really well. Nice ride, actually. Smuggling her into it and just outspeeding the winner when it mattered. Journey with Me when it mattered most. This was a good performance, and this is what I wanted to kind of see before, looking at these prohibitive prices about the Mare's Chase. They're going there. They don't have a novice entry. Neither Allegory or Impervious do. So we now know that they'll go there. And we also know that they can mix it with better opposition. Even though that was a novice race, good horses in behind. Manila Crooner's rated 146, for instance. I know it's the wrong trip for him, but still, that sets a decent bar level. So you're talking about you're pushing early 150s performances there, which then gives you a good line into your established mare of target, which is Scarlet and Dove, who's a 150 horse. So now you can make a concrete case that Impervious is on the upgrade, maybe marginally better than Scarlet and Dove, even right now. So yeah, our price is now a bit more valid, even though it's driven slightly 11-4 out of 74. I think we know a lot more, and I can kind of accept that kind of price. So yeah, it was impressive, and it's now down to the balls now in Allegory Devassi's court to do something similar and regain favouritism, even though she is kind of still.
Yeah, you've kind of 64, 74. Yeah,
There is kind of a lot of pre-market strength beforehand, so I think they probably expect her to win quite handsomely on Sunday and showcase her potential. Yeah, the impression was that they're two smart novices, but I think they're just in the process of confirming that. Journey with me, his only entry is 2.5 mile.
yeah.
Interesting because I thought he was probably worth a Brown Advisory entry. He definitely
Wouldn't rule him out of the turns.
no, I wouldn't. I mean, he's open. He's definitely learning. His jumping was a lot better. He was quite settled. He got in a good rhythm. He's warming to the task, which you like to see. And obviously, you like to see kind of progression from run to run. It's definitely there. I'm quite interested to see what they'll do with Manila Crooner because that's about the third time in a row he's been ran over a trip that's patently too short. He had this weird little entry in Warwick that he didn't take up to get a mark of 1.6. It's as if, well, we'll try and run him here, maybe get him down a pound to get him in a Kim Muir or something, but then he could run in another on Chase. He's pretty prominent in an Ultima market. I don't know if they're fishing for a handicap mark there a little bit too over elaborately. I think he'd probably have a decent chance in the National Hunt Chase. If it cut up, I think he's a kind of an extreme stamina-based horse, and I think I'd just run him at the longest trip possible, and that's a National Hunt Chase. Quite interested to see that they're trying to get him handicapped. I think there's kind of a wee bit of hope in longer graded races for him.
Yeah, Monday and Punches down my pick last week. Let's be clear about it. One now you can get about 20s for the Albert Bartlett. There's 25s kicking about. Gavin Cromwell seems to say that he is kind of heading towards that race. Did what he was entitled to do. I think he could potentially be an each way player in the Bartlett. Yeah,
he's battle hardened and he's each way player. You do wonder if there's a few classier in behind him.
Yeah,
the form of others that are ahead of him in the market. Faber de Champeau, for instance, of Gordon Elliott's. He was quite well beaten behind him.
Hidden Valley Lake beat him as well.
Hidden Valley Lake, and then they're basically the top two in the market. So I think more people are kind of backing the top two in a line rather than him. But I mean, Gavin Cromwell's record in that race, the bumper form, the background bumper forms coming to the fore. He's starting to come to himself a little bit, and you wouldn't rule out further improvement from it. He's definitely one of the more interesting horses in that race at a bigger price. So yeah, if you get bigger than that, then I think that's decent work.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. We'll move into Tuesday in Clonmel. A nice Willie Mullins mare won the novice hurdle there. Night and day. 7-1 now for the mare's novice. Again, probably a high hopes. This was a horse that ran in a Grade 1 last year in debut. Finished, I think she was about 7th or 8th. Now obviously won her maiden very impressively. Again, 7-1, maybe a bit too short.
Potentially. Interesting she's been out kind of so late. Her debut season and quite late again this year. He's a very big mare. I think she's probably much more of a chasing type down the line. A mare's chase next year, for instance, for her wouldn't be without question. I just think it's short enough for what she's achieved. I've got no doubt about her potential, but I think there's others there that are more interesting at the moment, the prices. But again, you just need to wait. Well, a lot of these Willie Mullins breeding horses that are getting freebies up front, we just need to wait to see them up in grade to actually see what they're all about. The kind of horse reduced to fortune in that regard.
Yeah, I think she could be quite a potentially nice horse for the future. Final horse to mention, Gaelic Warrior. 4-1s now for the Ballymore. Again, this horse is very much a talking horse by a lot of people. Jumped right near enough at every hurdle. There's no doubt there's a talent there. He's a very talented horse. What do you think here? Because I've got a lot of thoughts. I think this horse could potentially be a Grade 1 player this year, but I just wouldn't trust him jumping. He jumps so far right at times. It's like I couldn't trust him. Last year, straight, he would have won the race comfortably. This year, I think I'm getting the same worry.
Okay, well, I spent half my life talking about this horse. You look at the markets, and he's like sub 8-1 for about 6 races. It's ridiculous. His performance, we did learn a bit more. Blue Sari's decent in behind. He back from a burst blood vessel. So we know kind of what he's all about. And I think you'd have to take encouragement from his run. So that's a plus there. He's still jumping out to his right. He does look a lot more relaxed this year, though. I would give him that. So he's saving energy in that regard. Paul Townend's going widely on the outside to kind of probably try and get a rail up against him to actually straighten him out jumping wise. And it's he's still kind of jumping out to the right. His mark now is in Britain going to be 149 if he runs a Betfair hurdle. That's no gimme territory, and that's pushing kind of. You should be chancing yourself.
Do you think that's a fair mark on what he's done?
On a line with Blue Sari and the undoubted potential there, yes, I think you'd have to mark him quite harshly. I would probably have him more where the Irish are, mid 140s, based on what he's done. But he's just one of these horses that's been perennially hard to assess. Just need to go with your gut opinion. I think he's £10 better off going right-handed. And Paul Townend had to admit at the end is better than right-handed. So if Willie Mullins does have a spring on the Ballymore, or he sends Impaire Et Passe here, then you can see Gaelic Warrior maybe running off a Coral Cup. But 149, I just think it's borderline. You know, if he jumps exaggerately to his right like he did beforehand, it's probably going to find him out. If it was £15 last year, I do think he's a 150, 155 horse.
Do you think he's good enough to win a Ballymore?
He's good enough, but again, it's that jump. We don't know. We don't know how drastically this is going to be this season.
Yeah.
If he jumps badly right as he did in the Boodles, he will not be winning a Grade 1 around Cheltenham. It's as simple as that for me. And therefore, at the prices we're dealing with here, and this is, it is about prices. He's not priced up as if that right-handed thing's in the back of people's mind. He's priced up as if he's already been there, done it, proven graded horse.
Yeah.
He's not. It's all about potential. It's all about reputation. It's all about connections. You cannot get away from that run in the Boodles. How badly he jumped right. You can't. And if he's doing that at Clonmel slightly, then I don't think there's much hope that he's going to have that ironed out with just 2 runs under his belt, which he's been generally untasted in a race of a Cheltenham Festival nature. If he gets a decent position and something straightens him, then it could happen. Colreevy won a mare's chase by jumping right.
Yeah.
Ida won it jumping right. That was a handicap, and she had tons in hand. Gaelic Warrior was a handicap, and he had tons in hand, and it was so bad that he was unable to recover that. I think you need to. And again, we don't know what he can do in a big field. We don't know what he can do. Well, can you bury him in a field of horses, and does that straighten him out?
Yeah.
Or is he still going to do that wildly right, even when you're trying to maybe bury him front mid-division in a handicap? Is he still going to be that kind of quietly? I think there's so many unknowns here, and the prices are so short enough that you can just ignore them, really. You can't completely dismiss him.
You can't ignore him, but I think
Prices,
there's so much going through your head if you're backing him.
Yeah, there's the one thing that jumps through the head is how far right he's going to jump.
Yeah.
You know your fate the first. I mean, you'd be terrific at like in running. You go, I'll take 7s off him beforehand. If he jumps right, he'll probably go into 10s, and if he jumps straight, he'll probably go into 2s. I mean, that is the $1 million question with him. Can he jump straight enough to fulfil his undoubted potential around Cheltenham? And the only answer is we'll have to wait and see, because there's the evidence book. There's not enough of it.
Yeah, Betfair hurdle. I think if he goes there and wins that comfortably and jumps reasonably straight, he could be a short price favourite for the Ballymore. I think you're taking it in trust that he can do that. If he does that and they say Ballymore, I think he could be, because people are backing this horse, even though the glaring thing of him jumping to his right. So if he does something like, if he goes to Newbury and wins comfortably, straight as an arrow, do you know what I mean? The people will just latch on it again.
Yeah, again, it is totally wait and see. And if he was even if he was like 8s or something like that, you could kind of go, yeah, I mean, maybe a nibble or 71 in a non-runnable bet Coral Cup, potentially because if it goes Pete Tong, he's probably not going to run here. If he's too good, he's probably not going to run there. But you're just so betwixt and between about him about different factors that you can. I'm happy enough to leave him alone at the moment.
Yeah, we'll move on to what's coming up this week. Calum, we're both from the west of Scotland. The phrase weather permitting is very common with us. This is going to be a weekend where that phrase is apparent. Would you agree?
Yeah, there's inspection today at Ascot, which is game over, and Haydock tomorrow, which is probably game over. So it's very unlikely that either are going to go ahead. Lingfield's Winter Million, the first day of that, bit in the dust. Hopefully Sunday will survive, but yeah, Ireland might be getting away with it in time, I think, for all their kind of weekend meetings. A lot easier for them to reschedule. I mean, Fairyhouse was off on Wednesday, reschedule it for next Wednesday, so they've got scope in the calendar to kind of turn things around where, in Britain we kind of don't. Dan Skelton's stringer coming into form really nicely at the right time, and the winter takes a decent week out the calendar, and that's it. It's gone. You can reschedule the odd race, but you can't put the meeting back on. So it's difficult for the British trainers in that regard.
Yeah, let's go with the assumption that we are going to have racing all weekend. We've got a lot of races to talk about here. We'll start with the headliner, the Clarence House Chase at Ascot. Last year we saw obviously the thriller with Shishkin and Energumene. Obviously Shishkin won on the day. Again this year, 3 runners have been declared. It's very much another head-to-head, I think, between Energumene and Edward Stone. Don't need to ask where you're going here.
It's not a head-to-head because Energumene wins, but this is the weather gods maybe having revenge here, because if you finish 4th in this, you get 10 grand. I mean, if we don't have 4 horses with the ability to run the Clarence House Chase, what are we doing here? It is a pathetic spectacle, this. And Energumene will win if it happens at all, really. And Edwardstone will be second, and Amarillo Sky will be third. But we'll be getting some very, very nice prize money, which others don't seem to be interested in. The horses might not be there, but there should be more than 3 for this.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think Energumene will win as well. Just again, I'm not totally against Edward Stone, like as a horse, but I just think Energumene will be better. I think everything will suit. I just can see. I'd be very surprised if it takes place at all. But if it does, I think Energumene will win.
The interesting caveat that there is, though, that this could be rescheduled next week at Cheltenham.
Yeah.
That is factored into the calendar. Grade 1s can be rescheduled. So whether the whole meeting might be lost, that race, and if they meet at Cheltenham,
that happened before we undersold, didn't it?
Yeah, you'll get a big indicator there. So that is potentially an interesting one to watch out for.
Yeah, there's a Grade 2 Mares Hurdle. Molly Ollie's Wishes Leeds won that last year, 7-4 favourite. You've got Coquelicot at 9-2 for Anthony Honeyball. Indefatigable 6-1, 8-1 bar. Hard to see past Molly Ollie's Wishes for me here.
Yeah, Dan Skelton did another mare in that, didn't he? So you'd expect which one he'd declare they'd be strongly fancying, and they seem to have landed in Molly Ollie's Wishes, who was quite disappointing last time out, but a lot of Dan Skelton's runners ran disappointingly last time out and have bounced back quite effectively. You'd expect her to do the same in this. Coquelicot has direct form with a couple of decent kind of smart handicappers, so she's not bad, but I'd expect Molly Ollie's Wishes to be too highly rated, and I think she'd win that.
Yeah, we'll move into the Bet365 handicap chase. You've got Galaw 6-1, Phoenix Way won it last year, 13-2. Very interesting declaration of Dusart, 15-2 for Nicky Henderson. You've got likes of Danny Kirwan, Silver Hallmark. There's a few honest handicappers in there. All Mankind there at 25-1. Fancy anything for this?
Not really. I'm not spending too much time on the handicaps.
No.
We run in fairness, but the entry wise, I mean, Dusart's an interesting entry because this is too short for him. But I can see the Scottish Grand National being a big long-term project for this horse.
Could be.
I think he ran really well novice chaser at Ayr when last season when he had a season that was really kind of his totally against the 8 ball all the way through fitness wise. He won that race pretty well. It was a decent race. Sounds Russian is a good horse. Beating him quite convincingly, giving him weight as well. That was impressive. 155 might be a bit high, but if you can get him down to maybe like a 150, maybe 148, 149, Ronnie Bartlett really wants to win a Scottish Grand National. I think that's a clear long-term plan for him. I'm waiting for firms to pop up with him for a decent price, and I hope I just don't see like 6-1 6 weeks beforehand or something. But I think there's a long-term kind of strategy there to be etched out with him.
Yeah, could be. Yeah, Phoenix Way won it last year. I think he could be interesting here. Again, I'm not really looked too much into the handicaps because potentially it's potentially a waste of your time. But we'll move into Haydock. There's a few interesting races. You've got obviously the Rossington's Supreme Trial Grade 2. John Boyne won that last year, didn't he?
You did, yeah.
Yeah. Not got a John Boyne in it, I would say. Pembroke 5-2, Chasing Fire 3-1, Toothless 5-1 for Paul Nicholls. Very much, I would say, a second, third string for him. Even nothing in here's doing much in a Supreme, is it?
Probably not. Pembroke's interesting. Skelton's are kind of looking for kind of 2 mile novice hurdler. He might be the one. Chasing Fire has a decent reputation. Rare addition of the entry.
Yeah, I think he's probably one of the best we've seen so far in Britain.
Yeah, I was kind of waiting for him to kind of come out. Maybe bottomless crown heavy. Maybe they're kind of just throwing stumps to say, well, this is not going to be on. So
Pembroke was good the last day, to be fair.
Aye.
What did he beat is the question.
Yeah, I think Chasing Fire has probably maybe get a bit more kind of potential in terms of looking forward to the Supreme, because Ollie Murphy does tend to kind of have the odd kind of 2 mile very good Supreme horse. The place form that the big Classical Dream with a few, for instance. So he can ready one. There's potential for him. And I think if he bolted up in this or something, then he would definitely run in a Supreme, for instance. But I'd be hoping that Chasing Fire would win just for that alone.
Yeah, could be. I think Pembroke could probably win here. We'll move into the Unibet new one hurdle. Epatant's odds on and declared Aidan Coleman's going to ride her. I like to move it very much between the top two in the market, I would say. Again, Epatant, you wonder what the plan is here, because she was mistakenly not entered for the Mares Hurdle. You would have thought this maybe April last year, that's exactly where she was going. Is she just going to go to a champion hurdle?
Well, this entry is interesting because it is officially a champion hurdle trial. There's a lack of grade of proper 2.5 mile grade ones earlier on in the season, so she does kind of have to kind of run here at 2 mile or go down to grade 2, carry a penalty, which I don't think interests Nicky Henderson too much. She's going to be running bottomless ground again. I don't think that's kind of ideal for her.
No.
In the long run. It's been a bit of a weird program. She's been kind of forced into kind of these unsuitable tasks, and then it's going to maybe pop up Cherry Right in March. I think it'll be quite difficult for her. I like to move it, might have a chance. It's not a race that holds too much appeal for me, but I'm just really interested to see how Epatant will run, because she's just kind of been running okay in behind Constitution Hill. This is now a race where she can actually showcase her true ability and see where she's really at this season. It'll be an interesting pointer to where she is down the line. If she hits the line hard, then 2.5 miles probably Harper's Hope, but you do kind of have this niggling doubt of, will she really get the Mares Hurdle trip? And I don't think you're going to learn much to that on the day. You can get it at Aintree, but it's a flatter, sharper assignment than the Mares Hurdle. So she's kind of previously been all about speed. Maybe she's getting a bit older and she wants to slow things down a little bit. And it'll be interesting to see how much class she really does have, because I don't think she's getting any better.
No.
You need to run to a kind of decent old level to kind of justify a price in the Mares Hurdle market. Yeah,
I like to move. It's interesting as well. Is he good enough to beat Epatant? I don't know, but again,
it's a weight factor as well now.
It's the £7 and in heavy ground as well.
He tends to come into form around this part of the year as well.
Yeah, I do think Epatone will win. We'll move into the Peter Marsh. Royal Pagaille is not going for 3 in a row, but we have a Venetia Williams has got Fontaine Cologne at 4-1, Bristol Demise there at 11-2. A 14-year-old Black Lion is the back market at 14-1. I'm amazed that horse. And that horse just keeps going, and there's just ages on his side. Fontaine Cologne, I think, is interesting, but what would worry me is Venetia Williams' horses have not been in good form recently.
Yeah, they've not really fired all season, to be honest. Haydock, deep grounds, just you associate it with a trainer. Empire Steel of Sandy Thompson is always a horse that interests me in a race like this. I think he could probably go well. So if he was an each way price, I might chance him. But a lot of these have kind of shown their hand, and it'll be bottomless conditions. It would be very, very testing. And there's a similar race at Linfield. Some of them might defect there if that's on. So that's worth more money. The Linfield contest. So yeah, you're just gonna have to kind of wait and see a little bit. But the Northern trainers should target this quite well. The small present of Sue Smith, I don't think would be out of the equation. So maybe like that and a featherweight of like Empire Steel. Maybe those two kind of against feel like just a little bit of a price.
Yeah, I think you could be right. If Fontaine Cologne can maybe one for an Ultima or something like that, it just depends obviously how he goes. But again, Bristol Demai at Haydock, there's just something, and maybe a cliff horse that we're talking about, maybe something in him at Haydock.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have not much time for him, just a mudlark, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, conditions could be in his favour if we run. Couple of entries in Ireland that I find quite interesting. Obviously, you've got the 2 Grade 2s on Sunday. Allegory de Vass's entered the Mayor's Novice Chase. Chacun Persois is entered in the Grade 2 over 2.5. Now, very big if he turns up. That race could be interesting because obviously Allaho won it last year. Again, it's just a very interesting race. You've got the Hunter's Chase. I think that's the first time we'll see the Hunter's Chase get a real kind of mark for them this year. Wing Leader and Billoway are both entered in that. Ireland, there are some interesting entries, I would say.
Yeah, there's particularly some interest in the handicaps as well. Yeah, I mean, Allegory de Vasse, I think you'd expect her to win that. You'd expect her to kind of maybe win it quite impressively. By the looks of things, Chacun Persois, it's an interesting entry. Fakir de Deré could be in opposition, but should definitely put some substance to that race. It's a Grade 2, which is notably down in class for him. Also implies that they don't know what they're really doing with the Dublin Chase. I've not looked at the entries, but I mean, Fenner Gameen's Clarence House bid is kind of scuppered. It'd be pretty hard for him to go to like the Dublin Chase before, for instance, Chacun Persois. So that would leave that open for Blue Lord. So yeah, there's a bit of shuffling there. Chacun Persois could burn them off. Even over that trip, the ground seems to be drying out fairly reasonably there. It should be raceable. So yeah, he's definitely going to be interesting to see how he copes with 2.5 miles.
Yeah, I think if he goes here, I could give him a chance. Why is Royal Rendezvous rated 167?
Well, yeah, it's a bit kind of strangely high. I think he'd one really good run, didn't he, against might have been Allaho or something. In a high graded company, he's kind of been thwacked for that. But he's running over like really high.
163, I stand corrected.
60, yeah, he's running well over kind of really high class handicaps off top weight all the time. He's doing quite well. So yeah, I just think he's a bit of victim of his own consistency there. He's definitely not Grade 1 in class.
Yeah, we'll move into our Ante-post selections. Now, I do have the Ante-post selections going on the screen just now. Both myself and Calum, we do have some interesting ones. Probably the biggest news of the week so far is the news about maybe Flooring Porter might not be able to make it 3 in a row. Could be 50-50. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's all an obvious negative, isn't it? And it might explain why he's been a bit more subdued than normal this season. His opening run was kind of what you'd expect. Making all in blown up a little bit short of fitness. The second run was, I think they went maybe a bit too slow, but he wasn't kind of racing as enthusiastically as he normally does. So they've got a setback now since, so it's a bit 50-50. It's a bit of a worry because it's a long-term kind of plan of March is going to be the day and stuff, so you set him for that. So you don't really want setbacks in a long-term plan like that. He does kind of take in quite a lot of work. I think he's a bit hard to maybe get fully fit and fully right for the day. So yeah, it's definitely a worry. So I would readdress that 50-50, 60-40 against for him. And even if he does make it, you'd be slightly less confident because you know he's had a disrupted preparation for once, which he hasn't had in the last 2 seasons, which he's won it. So yeah, it's a bit of a concern, but fortunately for me, it's part of a multiple. I don't really have a big kind of massive kind of single vested interest in the race yet.
Can I go first because my pick is in the Stairs Hurdle?
Go on.
We were having this debate off air about what happens to. I think we can agree the Stairs Hurdle now, maybe not just with the exception of Floating Porter, it does not look a good race.
It looks incredibly vulnerable in terms of people with horses that are going to turn up, isn't it, at the moment?
So would you say that there's maybe an angle to make for a former winner of the race?
I think there might be.
My pick is, and I don't do this very often, I'm going to go for Paisley Park at 10-1. Now, again, he's 11. I think he's been quite decent this year. Two credible runs. Was unlucky, I would say, against Champ, and then obviously reversed it in the Long Walk in Boxing Day. I just think when you look at this race, he is obviously capable of hitting flat spots, as we know, and he's very, very hard to predict what he's going to do. He could either be all good or all bad. Last year's Cleve was very interesting because he lost 10 lengths at the start and still managed to stay on. So he's very interesting. But again, I don't think there's a horse. Home by the Lee is obviously one, is probably the improver of the race. But if you're asking me to take 10-1 in Paisley Park, knowing that if he's halfway towards his best, he's more than capable of winning this or even finishing the front three. I think 10-1 is a great play each way, even at that. Do you know what I mean? I still think it's a big enough price to, if you want, because I don't see him finishing too far away unless he completely bombs out. I just think 10-1 is massive, and I thought maybe with the news of Floating Porter he would be the one that shot him, and he hasn't. So I think Paisley Park 10-1 is a good price, and I'm going to put him up this week.
I think that's a fair bet. I really do. I think he's been better this season than he's been last season. Last season he was third, and there's a bit more questions to answer here with quite a few of these, notably the winner, and the winner's only horse that's consistently held him in recent years. So yeah, he was still at a good best part of 5 lengths, almost 5 lengths clear of Home by the Lee in the same race last year.
Yeah.
Now, with Bob Ollinger's obvious breathing issue, or some sort of issue, Floating Porter has been subdued more than usual this season. Is Home by the Lee's improvement that drastic as the market thinks it is? It might not be. And running to a decent level where I thought his first run was better than it usually is. He always needs his first run, and he was very close to running Champ, and he travelled a lot better and smoother. Kempton looked like a track that would be totally unsuitable for him, and he absolutely hacked up past Goshen, who won beforehand, and ran okay, and he comprehensively reversed the running with Champ. So, and he did hit a flat spot there at Kempton. So I think he's got a bit of his old kind of sparkle back. He's rated 161, which is £4 superior to Home by the Lee anyway. At the moment. So he's got a bit in hand there as cover. Yeah, he's a veteran, he's old, exposed, but the makeup of the race is falling apart, and he's the one that holding his form of the established lot. So yeah, Classical Dream, Fragile himself, Won't Stay, Blazing Cal, it's off the track for ages. He might not turn up. Floating Porter is a doubt to turn up. Tia Hupu might be a thorn in the side, but he does look pretty ground dependent to me. And 3 mile, that's going to be a stamina test. I can see him being outstayed by Paisley Park. So the rest in behind, you're like looking at kind of St Sam's and Monkfish. So you might get entries, and they might be interesting. And Buzz is on his way back, but I think this will come too soon.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then you're into handicap or territory, really, aren't you? So I think he's got a chance.
I think this is one of those picks that at 10-1, I will be astonished, even if he runs bad in the Cleve, that he'll be 10-1 in the day of the Stairs Hurdle.
Yeah, I'd like to see him run the Cleve. to see. But again, even if his rivals turn up, you'd think he's a 12, 14 to 1 chance at worst, I think that kind of, I think there's uncertainties over the ones ahead of the market, and the way he's solid, and he's kind of been a bit dismissed because he's a bit old and maybe a bit exposed, but it's a level of form that's definitely eminently good enough to win this race as it stands.
Yeah, I think it's a wee shot in the dark, but I think it's one of those that I think that I'd be astonished if he's a bigger price. Where is your selection this week, Calum?
An act of desperation. It's in the Boodles Juvenile Handicap, the old Fred Winter, and it's Tikal of Willie Mullins's.
Okay.
This horse has been given a handicap entry on Sunday at Thurles, and the Irish handicapper has given him a rating of 121.
Really?
Everyone's lining up like in behind comfort zone and all that. Who's Boodle's candidates here, there, and there? This is a winner. This horse is undoubtedly a 140 horse in my mind. He's got £20 to play with in the time between running here, getting another run in.
That's astonishing.
Getting another run in, and then going to Cheltenham. It's owned by GP McMahon. So he's trained by Willie Mullins. Willie Mullins has the top three in the Triumph Hurdle market covered. He knows exactly what the best are in that division. He knows exactly what it'll take to win off a Boodles mark at the moment. Gordon Elliott is nothing. Henry Dorman is nothing. The British have next to nothing. Joseph O'Brien has a few, and they're owned by GP McManus.
Yeah.
Who owns this horse for Willie Mullins. So they're fishing out. Common practice is get a mark of 128. He's not a £7 better horse than this chap. He was 12 to 1 early doors for the Triumph when he was beating favourite odds on. He was far too keen that day at the front, and Mark Walsh, he did really well to kind of still be in the conversation, hit the last, and just weakened out for fourth. He won by half a length in his next start, but he had absolutely tons in hand, cruising.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
About up front, travelling like a graded horse in a handicap, and they've decided, you need 3 runs in the Boodles, for instance, and then 4 runs in the novice handicapper. You can just directly go and ask a handicapper to get a mark and see where you're at, and then run to your kind of qualification. 121, still can't get over the number. 121, this guy is through the roof. He's in the same race as common practice. If he runs here, suspect he will. He can do what he wants. He can win as he likes and get in. But I'd imagine the British handicapper will give him at least 6. That takes you to 126. That's still probably not going to be enough to even get in the race. So I actually want him to kind of see what he can do before getting in.
I'm astonished at that.
And the way he's too slowly run races from the front as well. He shapes like a horse that'll actually be better than a true.
He looked a lot more settled. I know the first time he was a bit of a maniac, but the second time he was still a bit keen, but he was a lot better.
I think he'd be better in a truly run race, be more horses and a bit of cover. I think that suit him ideal. And he jumps straight. He's efficient. I think he's obviously well into easily the best part 2 stone. He's got a mark. The trainer's got the whole division covered. The owner has the division practically covered. He might have others, Risk Bell's one, but I think this guy's clearly. I think he's clearly got the most potential here.
What price have you got?
He's 8 to 1 non-run bet with William Hill. Gaelic Warrior went off 13 to 8 favourite, and we didn't know much about him. He was unseen. I mean, this guy, I know I've seen a bit more, and there's no kind of unknown wow factor about him, but he just seems to be totally well in here, regardless of what he does. I mean, I'd be comfortable if he ran off like a 135 or something, or even a 138. I'll be 129. Definitely gets you in, really, I think, at the bottom. So, yeah, they've got so much room to manoeuvre and figure out what the UK handicapper's going to do, where they'll run, where they're here. So you just need to kind of prolong these handicap plots longer now because of the new rules, which are a bit confusing in the head for everyone to get round. What deems a qualifying, what doesn't for these kind of races coming in to get your handicap mark. But I'd trust GP McManus and Willie Mullins to work it out and get get the kind of the right number and the right weight that they want for this race. So
top weight in the Biddles last year was 137, and it was Brazil.
Yeah, I mean, and I mean, I don't think there'll be much clamour for Willie Mullins and GP McManus to take on the established three at the top of the market plus.
No.
So I think the fact they're fishing for Martin now suggests Boodles to me. So we'll obviously have to wait and see. And there is 9s and 10s available, but the 8-1 Will Mill gets you your no bet kind of cover anyway. And if it's a point, just a point shorter, then I'd rather take that. But he's one that I can certainly hammer away and chip at, and a lot of them will definitely cotton on, because if he wins like 1-2-1 on the bridle and gets put up 7 or 8, then that's you're happy. So the job done. But it's just such a low mark that I just couldn't ignore it.
Yeah, I think that's surprised I get a marker at Neville now. I can see the angle there. It's, do you know what I mean? He's going to get allowances as well because of the 4-year-old. Do you not get allowances in the handicap?
You do in the weight, the claimers they can, but I don't think they're even interested in that, to be honest.
Yeah, I think 2 really good picks this week.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, you've got to kind of really. That was like diving really deep. That was an 11th hour stuff, and I've spotted a kind of similar kind of vibe for another handicap race from the same combination. So yeah, look, the way it's priced up, you kind of have to. To spot something, you'd rather kind of have like 12 or 14s first show, something like that, in a handicap like that. But I do think, people are like sorting out their short list of contenders, and there is a plethora of contenders in running this. I think that is going to be incredibly hard to beat the way it's initially shaping up anyway. So I might as well take the risk.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be it could be an interesting weekend. We're hoping to have some racing to talk about next week. We will be back next week with a new show. Calum, it's been an absolute pleasure as always. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks again.
Thank you. Thanks very much for tuned in. Please follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube and podcast channels. And we'll see you all soon. Cheers.